The Oregon Football Report is presented by Prize Picks. I am your host, Will Ortner. And on today's episode, we are going to be discussing the NIL valuation for the Oregon football roster. And we're going to find out just exactly how much this team costs down in Eugene, because I do think that this is a loaded roster with a lot of loaded talent. And in today's college football landscape, fortunately or unfortunately, you do have to pay for some of the top-end players. Now, the question is going to be, did the Oregon football team overpay? Did they potentially underpay? I think that when you look through some of the names that are on this list, it's going to come up as a shock to you. Because when I was searching through here, there were a couple players where I went, really? That guy makes that much? He's got a pretty darn good agent. And then I look at some of the other players and I go, really? That's how much that guy makes? He needs to talk to that other guy's agent and try and get more money or have a higher NIL valuation. Now, I do think that this is important. This is an NIL valuation. This isn't necessarily exactly how much each player is making, but it is a good ballpark guesstimation for us. Before we get into that, though, you love the Oregon Ducks. Hit that thumbs up button on today's video because, well, you frankly just love the content that we're doing, and we love getting Duck videos out to you, and we're going to be able to get more and more and more of those types of videos out to you if you hit that thumbs up button. So let's dive into a little bit more of exactly what this list is for the Oregon football team, because essentially this website went out and they looked at all the NIL valuations for every single college football team. That, of course, is college front office. Now, they released an article with all the CFB team valuations. They went from top to bottom. But what is important to mention, because I do think that this is smart, is that do not take these as official, that's how much each player makes. This is a valuation, not necessarily exactly looking into their pocketbooks, because we don't truly know what each player is making. We have a good guesstimation, but we don't know 100% factual. So what were they measuring over there at college front office? Well, they were looking at on-field projections. So where does a player project to end up at? Is he going to be a top-end player? Is he going to be a bottom-end player? Positional value. A quarterback's going to make more than an offensive lineman. That, unfortunately, is just the way that the cookie crumbles. There is going to be opportunities where some offensive linemen may make more than some quarterbacks, but the top-end O-lineman is never going to make more than top-end QB. Program market, you got to look at the big-name guys. Big-name guy at Texas is going to make more money than a big-name guy at Northern Illinois. Talent assessment, obviously, you got to look at, will the guy play on Sundays? Experience, eligibility, typically older guys end up making more money than some of the younger guys, but then again, there is an opportunity for some of these 4- and 5-star kids to really jump up. You're going to have a lot of social brand reach, of course, because nowadays, apparently, Instagram factors into how much a player makes or does not make. We also look at the depth chart role for those players. When we look at the top 10 team evaluations, Oregon comes in at number 3, but of course Texas leads the way, which that doesn't shock me. That seems about right. They're obviously a very quality institution, and they're also a blue blood. They got the money around them. LSU, pretty high. Ohio State ends up topping Oregon ever so slightly. LSU, Miami round out the top 5. Notre Dame, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss are the other teams there in the top end. So right now, Oregon's roster valuation is at $41.60 million for the year of 2026. And to me, that does end up sounding about right. What'll be very interesting and what I'm most excited to see, and we're really going to dive into in its entirety in this video, is how much each player is making, and is that about what they could potentially be making with this valuation? But before we get into any of that, I need to let you know that today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app and is the best place to win cash while watching sports. With playoff basketball finally here, there's no better time to cash in than with our friends at Prize Picks. And I'll tell you this, the app is really easy to use. To qualify for a Prize Picks lineup, pick 2 to 6 players and select more or less on stat projections, including points, rebounds, assists, three-pointers, and several others across all sports. If you're more of a baseball guy or a gal, you can choose stats such as hits, home runs, and strikeouts. One thing I really love is the new social feeds feature where you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. You can actually follow me on the app at BigWill7774 to see all of my lineups. I have a lineup for the football action going on later on this year. Justin Herbert, more on his passing yards. Quentin Johnston, more on his receiving touchdowns. Rashid Shaheed, more on his receiving yards. New user offer. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups with PrizePicks. Clickable link to download the app is in the comments and description. When we look at the entire roster breakdown for the Oregon football team, now the retained players are going to end up making around $30.20 million. At least that's the valuation for that group. Our portal group right now is projected more at $5.70 million. And then the recruits that the Oregon football team is bringing in, they are valued at $5.70 million as well. So that's what gets the Oregon football team all the way up to the top. Now, I think we all know who the top value duck is when it comes to NIL. So I'm going to ask you right here, right now, which Ducks player has the second highest valuation? Let me know what your thoughts are going to be down below in the comment section because we will get to that player here in just a moment. I'm very interested to hear what everyone thinks. Obviously, number one, the highest valued player is going to be quarterback Dante Moore. He's at $7.50 million. That's what they are valuing. Evan Stewart, interestingly enough, ends up coming in at number two at $1.54 million. Quarterback Dylan Raiola coming in at third at $1.50 million. And then Bear Alexander, finally, we get to the defensive side. He ends up coming in at fourth at $1.50 million. And then Amari Washington at number five doesn't even get into the millions in his valuation. He's at $954,000. Something tells me that that's not so much of a chump change. Now, how does this break down, though, for each unit? Because each unit might be different. You saw a lot of offensive guys on one side, but you also saw a lot of defensive guys as well, kind of there at the back end. Now, we're going to kind of rapid fire through the first three because we already know on the offensive side of the football where everyone sits. Dante Moore is at number one, number two is Evan Stewart, and number three is Dylan Raiola. We already knew where those guys were going to be. So who's 4 and 5? Now, what's interesting here is DeCorian Moore ends up popping onto the screen at $913,000 in his valuation. This makes a lot of sense. Star player out of Duncanville. He's big-time recruit, played really well last year. This one surprised me a little bit. Fox Crater, the guy that I coached against when he was in high school, is coming in at number 5 at $864,000. Now, when you look at Fox Crater, I think that he is a solid player, and he's going to continue to jump forward in his development at the University of Oregon. Dante Moore obviously boosts this group up a little bit higher than most other groups would be. Like if you looked at Tennessee's valuation on their players, everyone's a little more similar. It's, everyone's in that $1 to $2 million range all the way down. That's not what Oregon does, but Oregon ends up coming up so high because of, Dante Moore. What are your thoughts on NIL? Let me know down below in the comment section. Are you a fan of NIL? Are you not a fan of NIL? Very interested in hearing what you have to say there. I think it's a good thing at the end of the day. These kids deserve to make some money. When we look on the defensive side of the football, Bear Alexander and Amari Washington are 1-2. We already knew that. So who ends up coming in at third? This shocked me. Dontre Robinson, the defensive line transfer in, ends up coming in at number 3 for Oregon football. Brandon Finney, he ends up at number 4 on the defensive side of the football. And then Matayo Uiagalelei ends up coming in at number 5. Now, I would have thought that Tatum Tuioti would have had an opportunity to jump in here. In fact, I'm really surprised that Robinson is that high. I also would have kind of expected Coy Parrish to be a little bit higher as well. So I'm going to be honest. I was shocked by the defensive side of the football because I thought there were some guys on this roster that had already played themselves into a position to be getting just a little bit more than what they are valued at least according to this report. let's dive into the transfer players next because we already know a couple of them, right? We know Dylan Raiola is really high. Now, you would think that Robinson would have been number 2, but he actually wasn't. Yale transfer, Michael Bennett comes in at number 2, and then we see Robinson jump back into the fold. Finally, at 4, we see Coy Parrish jump in at $540,000 in his NIL valuation. That's a player that I thought would have been over in the 7 figures category. And I think that maybe this report might not have him nailed down as they might want. Aaron Scott Jr. ends up coming in at number 5, the Ohio State cornerback transfer. Excited to see what he does with this team, but I also think it's important to kind of note with Aaron Scott Jr. That we've been hearing a lot of the young guys are playing really well in that secondary. This is a solid group overall. I'm very excited to see what they end up doing and how they end up performing for Oregon football. Lastly, I wanted to go through the highest valued recruits that are going to be coming in that 2026 class. And now we don't know any of these guys, or at least we haven't mentioned any of these guys yet. Immanuel Iheanacho ends up coming in at number 1, just under 7 figures. Very excited to see the big fella come in. He hasn't been on campus yet for the Oregon football team. Neither has Jalen Lott, wide receiver. He's going to come in at number 2. Certainly earned that amount. Very excited to see what both of those 5-star kids can do in Oregon. Anthony Jones, edge rusher. He's coming in at $607,000. Jett Washington at number 4. Fantastic safety. Obviously, I'm really high on what he was able to do in spring ball. Kendre Harrison comes in next there for the Oregon football program, and he's going to be the 5th highest in this NIL valuation. Now, I want to make this very clear. Obviously, this was a fun exercise, but these are valuations, so you do have to be clear on this. That is not necessarily a guarantee of what those guys are making in their NIL. It's just what this report believes they are going to be valued at. I had a lot of fun doing this video. I hope you had a lot of fun watching it. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button if you will. We love covering the Oregon football team. We hope that you love watching everything that we are doing here. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. And as always, Sko Ducks!